Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Doc Talk with Monument Health. My name is Mark Houston, and joining me today is Dr. Brooke Eide, who's an ER doctor with Monument Health, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I work at the main hospital here and also go with some to Custer and serve as the medical director there and the chairperson as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what led you to this, doctor? Good Lord.
Emergency medicine?
Yes.
Yeah, it's one of those things I didn't really see myself doing when
Are
I
you
started
an
medical
adrenaline
school.
junkie or?
Well, all ER doctors are ADHD. I mean, that's just the baseline. We don't do well focusing on one thing, and we like to jump around and do lots of things and get our hands dirty and see exciting things and then really hand it off to someone else. That's kind of the goal, is do the exciting part and then move on.
So you're from here. I mean, you're kind of born and raised not too far away, right?
Yeah, I grew up here with the high school in Newell, which is about an hour north of Rapid, and then I went to USD down in Vermilion and did my undergrad there in medical school, and then trained out in Ohio, and that was a good place to train, good place to be from, not to be, and then was really excited to come back to Rapid City, and I've been here for 16 years, I think, back in the ER.
So do you have family that's in medicine, or why? I mean, coming from Newell, incredibly small town, you know, what was there growing up for you that you're like, you know what I want to do? I want to do this.
I don't know if it's really what I wanted to do. I don't have family. My dad was a rancher there. We had, sheep in Newell, so all the sheep stuff. We can get off topic.
Sure.
We can get off topic real quick. And then my mom was a speech therapist, so I guess at the school. And then, but I have 3 siblings. I have a sister who's a dermatologist here in town. I have a brother who's a corneal surgeon in Sioux Falls. And then my other sister's a speech therapist.
Wow. So you all kind of went into the field then.
Yeah, we all kind of went into medicine. I'm not sure why. I kind of credited, I had a biology teacher in high school that really kind of got science interested. And then didn't know what I wanted to do. I went down to the Vermilion, to the university there, and I kind of wanted to do wildlife stuff, to be honest with you. I did some wildlife biology stuff there, and then I wasn't sure about that. And then I ended up moving out to Boston, and I worked at a pharmaceutical company for a short time before medical school. And then drifted my way up north to New Hampshire and Vermont and did a master's degree at Dartmouth in evaluative clinical sciences, which was kind of biostatistics and health management, health business. And that kind of got me back in the med school track. And then I came back to medical school here, and it kind of all went from there. Here I am. Time flashes by. And
boy, no kidding. That took you to quite a few places just to get you back here.
Yeah, it did, but it was good. It was a good experience. When I worked at the pharmaceutical company in Boston, and then I didn't really like that very much. And then I taught high school there, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was very interesting. All boys school, and it's amazing. You think that would be good because you get the boy-girl stuff away. But when you get boys away from girls, the social norms go away. You know, boys act differently when the girls to control them.
Yes,
so that was
exactly.
Interesting.
Wow, you mentioned it being like an ADHD, type person at the start of this. Boy, you've covered it.
Yeah,
for sure.
I like to do lots of different things.
Yeah, no kidding.
You see that with ER doctors. I got partners that are into race cars and motorcycles and climbing, and we're kind of the people that we work hard, play hard. And when you're on an ER shift, there's times where you think, boy, I have had to go to the bathroom for 2 hours, but there isn't time. But then when you get off, you hit something else. You hit the mountain bike hills or do something. We're all kind of that kind of ADHD go.
That's amazing. We were talking before you got in here, doctor, that you were at, and I cannot believe, out of all of the doctors and people I've talked to on this podcast, I haven't asked this question. You were at, I believe, some conference where the topic was, is there a doctor in the house or is there a doctor on the plane?
Yeah.
Is that right? Was it something like that?
Yeah.
I can't believe I've never asked that question, if that's ever happened to a doctor.
Oh, yeah, it happens all the time.
Does it really?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're on a plane and you probably don't notice it, but they'll say, all of a sudden the bell will ding and they'll say, is there a doctor on board? And it's one of those things where at first you just kind of sit there because you think, man, I'm on vacation or I'm going somewhere. And then it dings again and you're like, okay, I better do it. And you push your call button and then the stewardess comes back and gets you. And they say, you're a doctor, and you identify yourself and they say, can you come help us? And of course we all help when we can.
Yeah.
So you get drug off to someplace else on the plane to try to do something, which is always interesting.
Well, it has to be. But I'm surprised that it happens as much as you said. I guess, I've flown quite a bit.
Yeah.
Never heard it before. Excuse me, I don't know how I'd react if I did hear it. It must be a little, you must be a calming presence there when something like that pops up then, I would assume.
Yeah, usually what happens is they'll say something like that, and when it's happened to me before, you'll head to wherever they take you, and a lot of times there'll be another a medical person there, maybe a nurse or another doctor. And usually right away you kind of introduce yourself, and right away, as soon as they see that you're an emergency doctor, they bail. They're out of there because they know that we're the right people for this kind of thing. Yeah. So I think it's a relief to the other providers that are there to say, okay, we've got an ER doctor here. My dermatology skills probably aren't going to help in this situation.
My doctor in psychology is not going to come in right now. Is there not to get too off topic on this now, but this is really fascinating. When you're on a plane and something like that happens, do they have types of equipment on the plane that you could be like, hey, do you have this? We're going to need this for this person, or
yeah, they do. Whether it's, I've been called up at weddings. I've been called to play doctor at football games. I've been called at planes. And so it's always different, right? Yeah. And so planes are a little better than other places. I was at a football game this fall and I got drug over to see somebody, and there they have an AED, a defibrillator device, and they're pretty basic. They're made for a layperson. That's all you have. On the airplane, they actually have quite a few tools in the back of the plane that they keep. Unfortunately, they're usually not what you need, like anything, because they're not going to keep a bunch. But they have ways to start IVs. They have, of course, they have oxygen there, which is always a big thing. Unfortunately, all these places have AEDs that are set up for lay people. Yeah. And so what I really want to see is a rhythm. Like I want to know, like the last time it happened to me, it was an elderly lady who was feeling really dizzy and faint. And so the question is this a heart problem? Is this a hydration problem? It could be so many things. The hard thing is you realize how dependent we are on our tools. So I have all this stuff, and if I was in the ER, I'd say I want an EKG, I want to look at their heart, let's get them on a monitor, let's get some blood work, well, there you're kind of like, okay, what do I have? It's kind of a MacGyver type thing. You're like, I got a pen and I've got some chewing gum, and all right, what can I do with this?
Let's see, I stuck that there and I'm not getting
okay, that didn't work. Right. And then you find out, it's just your ankle sprained? Oh, sorry about that poke in your chest.
How do you stay calm and focused in situations like that?
I think it's part of what draws you to it, right? I think people that do emergency medicine are people who, I think back to when I was in high school playing football and someone would get hurt, and you're kind of the calm person. You're kind of the person that says, okay, let's take a step back, and that's kind of what we do in the emergency department even. It's kind of our job to keep a calm environment. And sometimes you're thinking, oh, crap, this is not good, but you can never show that, right? It's a poker face. It really is, where you have to be in control because everyone else is feeding off of you. So they're looking at me to say, like, how bad is this? And sometimes it's bad, and my face kind of stays that same, like, okay, we're going to get through this. It's going to be okay. So there really is a lot of calming stuff. And it's the same in the emergency department as it is if you're out at the family reunion or in the airplane, where you have to keep that calm sense. And that's something you just kind of learn. And some of it's just confidence, where you've seen thousands and thousands of patients. And you know that if you don't look like you know what you're doing, or you look like you're worried, it's going to go to chaos.
And I suppose that can be, that's significant. When you can keep everybody else around you calm then as well. Yeah. That plays a big part in getting through whatever situation you're in.
Right. And there's so many things. We have a saying in emergency medicine, and it's don't just do something, stand there, which is really backwards what you think, but so often people do more harm than good. Yeah. I was at a wedding once, and my cousin's wedding, and somebody fainted. And so I'm standing there. I'm like, I'm not going over there. I'm sure it's fine. Sitting in my pew. And all of a sudden my cousin's pointing at me, calling me over. So, okay, now I got to go. Everyone's looking at me. So I go over, and it's an elderly gentleman who's just passed out, which happens. Sometimes it was hot in the church. And there was somebody else there, and they were rubbing on both sides of their neck. And so sometimes carotid stimulation can cause vagal maneuvers to help wake up, but you never do both sides, right? And so sometimes it's just not doing anything, So mainly what I did is I said, let's back up, let's give him some air, clear people off, and then kind of assess him. He starts to wake up, and it's like, okay, the best thing to do is nothing so often. And that's even on a plane sometimes. It's saying, okay, what are we going to do? What's going on here? How serious is this? Is this something that we could do more harm than good? Yeah. And so sometimes it's just kind of calming people, figuring out what's going on. And then there's some things that are truly, life-threatening. You need an hour. You have so much time to get things going. Other things, it's about stepping back and saying, okay, something's not right here, but this is something that we can be calm about and do the right things here. And that's my experience on the plane, was that same kind of thing of, okay, what can we do? The hard thing was that I got asked whether they should divert the flight.
Boy, what a hard decision.
That's
on
a
your
hard decision.
part.
And of course, you have this, you're human, you're selfish. I'm thinking, I got connections to make. Right? Like, okay, no, I can't be selfish here. But so then you got to figure out where you are. Okay, well, where can we divert to, and how much time does that save us? Okay, we divert here. it's 10 minutes closer than going to our place. Okay, I think we're okay. And you start thinking about the other passengers, and I thought, this isn't really my job, and it's not. The pilot decides that, but they'll kind of rely on you to say, okay, what do you think, doctor? Is this something? They don't want anyone to get hurt either.
Of course,
everyone's trying to do the right thing, so you kind of get some pressure on you there, and then you find that, like I said, the tools you want usually aren't there, but if you had to, there's some stuff there, and you kind of make it work.
Yeah. Do you, when you're on vacation, do you carry anything with you for an emergency?
I carry an EpiPen with me.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I have an EpiPen. I've looked into. They have some really good, as things get more modern here, some good devices for your phone to look at heart rhythms. Because a lot of times I want to know, is this a heart attack? Is this a bad rhythm that's causing this? So I've looked into those. I don't do one of those because you got to carry the leads and stuff too. So you hate to carry too much stuff, but yeah.
Well, that kind of ruins the point of the vacation.
It kind of ruins the point of the vacation. And like I said, it's funny how often it kind of comes up, and you always go to the debate. You kind of look at them, you're like, I think they're just drunk. I think I'll move on.
Well, I mean, that's stressful, obviously, and you want to keep people calm, but there has to be an emotional toll for you too, working in a job like this. Where you see some of the most horrific moments that are happening in people's lives, probably more so than any other doctor, I would think.
Absolutely.
I mean, how do you handle that? How do you get through those kind of moments?
Yeah, I think it's you find that everyone finds this way of coping, and I think in the emergency department you'll find that most people cope through humor, honestly, and so it's finding that time of, obviously there's times you're serious and you're busy and you're saving a life, but then you got to step back and have a little humor. And so we have a lot of humor in the emergency department, which is, I think, keeps us kind of coping. And you just kind of learn to leave working, leave it behind, which is a challenge. And sometimes some things are harder than others. Sometimes you have a little kid that reminds you of your kid, and you see them run over by a car. Those times are really hard. Sometimes you go home, you do take that home with you sometimes.
Sure. But
for the most part, you kind of learn to kind of separate. I mean, you have to in order to do what we do, where you say, I always joke that when you leave the ER, it'll be busy and it'll be codes and car accidents and things. And when I leave there, it reminds me of the Arnold Schwarzenegger leaving on the movie scene, the burning building. He doesn't look back. You walk out, and when you're not there, you don't think about all the chaos going on there. You're just kind of like, nope, I left work, and now I've got to
You put your sunglasses on, very slow motion.
Exactly. You just kind of walk away, and there's explosions going up behind you, and you're like, my shift's over. I can't. If I stayed to help, I'd stay forever.
What are some of the most Are there like common injuries or illnesses that seem to always pop up in an ER, or is it always just constantly different every time you're in?
Yeah, the nice thing about the ER is there's certain common injuries, of course, that we see. There's ankles and elbows and shoulders, and there's certain illnesses, but there's always something. In 16 years and 90,000 patients I've seen, there's always something I see that's new, and I think I've never seen that before. And that's part of the excitement of it, is to see these new things and to really think through them. I mean, if you're someone who doesn't like the idea of not knowing what's going on, the emergency department's not the right place for you, because we're starting from fresh of what's going on, and then it's really an art to try to sort through it. We get a lot of people that come in. We always joke and laugh that they're amazing at evading the question. If you ask, when did your arm pain start? They'll say, well, I went to the movies. I don't know when to the movies. Okay. What movie? When was the movie?
Right.
And they'll say, well, the movie was later in the day. No, that's not what I mean. And so it's this kind of art of directing people, and
right.
They're pretty good at, which is interesting because in medical school they teach you these open-ended questions. They always say, you ask open-ended questions. That way you get the answer. Well, that doesn't work in the real world. They're very direct questions. Sometimes I'll even say, okay, these are yes/no questions.
Yeah.
Did it start a day, a week, or a month ago? Or
right.
You've really got to try to learn to, because people are really interesting, and I think a lot of it is that you see the press releases that's come out and they say ask your doctor questions.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's hard because people feel like they should ask a question when they don't have one. So you get done with your evaluation. So you have any questions, and they'll go, well, let me think about that. I'm like, well, if you don't have one, that's okay.
That's great.
You don't have to have a question. But so there's a lot of the art of medicine, especially emergency medicine, is steering people to get the answers you need in order to make their diagnoses.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of psychology that goes into this too, a little bit. You're dealing again with people that are coming in. They're generally probably scared.
Yeah.
They don't know what the next step is going to be. So not only are you a calming presence, but you're also trying to get into their head a little bit.
Absolutely. It's hard because we see people on the worst day of their lives,
Right.
right? And so even the nicest person sometimes is not very nice. And so that's a hard thing. You know, we have a lot of violence actually in the ER, you know, because people are not at their best. They're on substances, drugs or alcohol. They're having a bad day. They have mental health issues. So we see a lot of that as well. So that kind of makes it a challenge. But there is, I always say, we're kind of a salesperson, right? And so what I do is sell. I sell someone on their health or their illness. So if someone's sick, I have to sell them, you're sick, you need to get this treatment, this testing done. I'm selling them that way. If they're well, I've got to sell them, hey, things are okay. You know, you're going to be okay. This is something that you can go home, take this salve, it's going to go away, right? And so we're really selling things. We're selling people on either their health or their illness.
Is there are there myths or common misconceptions about the ER that you would like to debunk, or you just wish people would know when they come in? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, some of that. I mean, I think a lot of people. So emergency medicine is one of the newer specialties in medicine. It came about in the 70s, and so before that, the people that covered the emergency department were sometimes people early in their training, or people who were getting ready to retire, or just kind of looking for some other way out. So sometimes people will say, well, what are you going to do when what's your long-term goal? We have to explain, well, I did specialty training in emergency medicine. This is my specialty. This isn't something that I'm doing till I can become a, orthopedic doctor or whatever else it may be. Like this is what I do.
You're board certified. I mean, you're
absolutely
100% board certified for this. Yeah.
Yep. It is a specialty that I did specialized training in. And so that's kind of especially with older people, it's kind of a misconception is that people in the ER are the people that maybe couldn't get a clinic because no one would go to them, right? No, I did specialty training. This is what I chose to do, and this is what I do and will do till I retire.
Right.
Yeah, so that's probably a big one. I think the other one is that sometimes people see us just as triage, right? So we're just basically trying to determine you need to see an eye doctor and you need to see a skin doctor, but we do a lot of that stuff. I mean, we do more than just determine you need to see that. We stabilize things, and then we treat a lot of things. And so what we do in emergency medicine is really the evaluation. We determine, do you have a life-threatening illness? And that's our main thing. So some people come in and say, well, I didn't get the treatment I wanted because you didn't figure out what my rash was.
Right.
And that's not really what we do. What we do is determine, is that a rash? Is that one of the bad rashes? Is that a measles rash? Is that a staph rash? Or is that a rash that's from who knows what, something you got in the lake, it's going to go away. So our job's not really to diagnose, it's to determine, do you have a life-threatening problem? And if so, stabilize that and then get you to the next person. Sometimes most people don't have a life-threatening problem, so then our job is to say, you don't have a life-threatening problem, go back to your primary care doctor. They can kind of work this up there.
Okay.
So that's kind of a misbelief too.
Although, those are two big ones. I mean, honestly, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I know that's going to pop up here in Rapid City that I think you guys are kind of excited about is the word for it a micro?
Yeah.
So are they calling it a micro?
So there's micro hospitals.
Hospital. That's micro hospital. Okay.
Yeah. So Monument is really, being progressive here. And we're looking at ways to how healthcare is expanding. And so one way is through freestanding emergency departments. And they're really big in Texas. And a lot of them are privatized down there. And so Monument's saying, okay, we can do this as part of our system, which is a lot better because we can share the computers. You can see, if you go to this freestanding ER, and you end up in the hospital, all that stuff's in the computer, right? We're on the same system. So there's a lot of advantages to it. And so Monument's saying, okay, we're going to move into this kind of satellite. As Rapid City grows, it gets further and further to the emergency department. And so how can we better serve the community? And part of that is through these freestanding ERs, and then some of them have micro hospitals in them, so they can even have some things stay there. If you need a certain specialist, you may come back to the mother hospital, which is Monument Rapid City. But some things may be able to stay in this micro hospital, and it's kind of one of those things you can kind of grow upon. But it kind of starts with your base, and your base is really the emergency department. I don't know the exact percentage of the hospitalizations that come through the main Monument come through the ER first. So most people get hospitalized start out in the ER and then go into the hospital. And this will be kind of that access point that's not at the main hospital to go to the ER and see the same doctors most likely working there as well. And so getting that same access closer to your home.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds very exciting for, Rapid City. We're not huge, obviously. No. We're not like a giant, we're not a Sioux Falls or anything, obviously. People know that. But we're the biggest thing out here. And I think having more locations like that for a lot of the rural areas that we have around here also, it has to alleviate the pressure too from the main ER, right?
It will. I mean, so we're not huge, but because of the size we are, we function very large. And so even our emergency department is busier than both Sanford and Avera by substantially bigger.
Really?
It's busy. They have 2 hospitals. They split that. Billings has 2 hospitals, but we're in that size where we're not really a 2-hospital town, but yet we're pretty big for 1 hospital. And so we're the busiest ER in South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming. So all of those, we have the most volume. And so we also, because of where we are, and we're kind of an island for healthcare, we have all the cardiology resources. We're a stroke center. We're a trauma center. We do a lot more. If you looked at most communities, say, okay, this is a 75,000, 100,000, whatever we are now, community, they'd be so close to a larger city that they wouldn't have a lot of the resources we have here. Because of where we are, Monument's done a good job of saying we need to keep these people here. And so they've done significant investment to have the right neurosurgical team to bring in interventional stroke people.
Right.
So we can do some of the stuff that most towns our size probably wouldn't do. But we kind of made that investment to do those things here so we can really serve the community.
So do you have, I don't think you have, you're not out there with your hammer and saw building this micro hospital, but do you know what its time frame at all?
Yeah, it's still kind of early on.
Okay.
So it's going to be 18 months maybe. I'm not sure exactly. That's kind of
all right.
But yeah, so it's coming. Like I said, it's still kind of in the early stages of planning things, but it's coming, and we want to make sure we do it right.
Yeah.
So when we do this, we want to get it up. We want to do it right, and we want to offer exceptional care from day one. And that's really the goal. And so we're really just not jumping into it and saying, hey, let's throw a cardboard box up and start this thing, September,
Yeah.
right? We're going to do it right. It's going to be nice, and it's going to be really a good thing for the community.
You mentioned earlier about how in 16 years, 90,000 patients, that you will always tend to see something new in your practice. Do you have one thing that kind of stands out for you, either from a patient or a day, something that you were like, wow, I still kind of go back and think about that?
It's a funny thing. So everyone asks, you get together with people, with
I'm
friends
sure
and
that's
family.
the number one question.
The number one question is, the ER, what cool stuff have you seen? I had a family reunion. They're like, what do you have to tell me about? And it's funny how I sit there and I'm like, I've seen so many cool things, but when you get put in the spot, it's really hard to come up with them.
Yeah, of course.
Of course you think about, everyone loves the stories about things put where they're not supposed to be.
Oh, boy, yep.
Those are always fun, except for that person.
Right, exactly.
So those are always interesting things that stick in your mind of, man, I can't believe that ball got there.
Yeah. Do you have patients specific that you think about that they're here now because of you and your team and what happened? And do those stick with you? Do those stay with you?
Some of those do. Some of them, I think of this gentleman I took care of that had a cardiac arrest just as he was walking in our door.
Oh, wow.
And so we bring him back and we're trying to resuscitate him, and we're doing everything we can, every drug we have to try to get his heart going again, all the CPR. I had a great team of nurses. So we're working on him, and we get to the point where it's been too long. Like, clearly we're not getting him back for whatever reason. And so something we do in emergency medicine sometimes is we bring family in at this point. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of good to give them that closure. To, first of all, let them see, hey, we're doing everything we can, and that helps them. And also kind of those last moments. And so I bring this elderly gentleman's wife in. And sometimes people all react differently. And some people will roll around the ground and scream, oh, Lordy, no. And this particular lady, I remember, she pulled a chair up and she held his hand and she started praying with him. And I was like, oh man, okay, we'll do one more. We'll do 2 more minutes because this is tugging at my heartstrings here. And sure enough, his heart starts again. And this gentleman 6 months later called me from his kitchen table to say they were sitting with his neighbors and to thank me. and so like I said, the odds at that point, and even when we do get him back, a lot of times there's not enough oxygen to the brain, brain damage. And this guy somehow, not only was I minutes away from saying, we got to stop. It's been 30 minutes where, if he does come back, he's going to be brain dead, to the fact that he came back and lived. So that one sticks in my head, I have to admit.
Boy, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But what a great feeling, though, too. I mean, to know that, you did absolutely everything you could do.
Yeah.
And it made a difference.
Yeah, it is a good feeling. Because sometimes you leave there and you think, boy, if I wouldn't have been here today, I feel like Rapid City would have been the same. And other days you leave and you think, man, because I was there, there's going to be somebody's going to have their dad tonight.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So those are good things. And those are things you got to really stick with, because there's so many, drugs and alcohol and people spitting on you, and there's so many other things that make it sometimes you're like, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
You know, why am I not back on the I should be back on the farm, you know?
Exactly.
At least then I could just go out in the barn and have some quiet time.
That sheep farming doesn't seem
Yeah,
so
it
bad
doesn't seem
right
so
now.
bad. Yeah, exactly.
Dr. Brooke Eide, thank you very much for coming in and talking with me. This has been a lot of fun. And anytime you want to come back, I could talk about this stuff all day. So let's do it again, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.